Tonight's shiur is called Free Choice Redefined. Do we really have free choice? So we have to, before we answer that question, we have to understand what is free choice and when is it truly manifested. When we say when is it truly manifested, on what do we have control over? I read a lot, if you really want something, you can do it, you can get it, you can have it. And I think to myself, baloney. How many people want to be millionaires and are not? How many people want to be happy and are not? How many people want to be successful and are not? So there seems to be obviously things that are beyond our control. And rightly so. Because who says that our objective and to reach our objective and our goal and our purpose in creation is to be exactly what we want? Sometimes quite often, to reach our objective and our goals is not necessarily to have what we want, but to be given what we need. To be tested, to be thrown certain circumstances at us is exactly what we require, what we need. And the end result that is born out of intellect, for example, or emotion, or instinct, is not truly free choice. Because if your instinct says something or dictates that you do something, for example, your instinct, at the very core of your instinct is to breathe. You don't stop breathing. It's not based upon your free choice, really. It is so automatic that you don't think, should I breathe or shouldn't I breathe? It is basic to your instinct. So it's not really a choice. You don't really get up one morning and say, today I think I'm going to breathe. Today I think I'm going to eat. It's not really a choice. You're not really making a choice when you say you're going to eat. Because it's born out of a need. Similarly, the intellect is such that we come to conclusions in life, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. And therefore, to be able to say that I freely chose to do this and I freely chose to do that is not absolutely correct, because it is born out of a conclusion of our intellect. Our intellect almost drives us and forces us to behave in a particular manner. That is a good thing, by the way, because we should be driven by our intellect and use our intellect to come to conclusions, what is right and what is wrong. So anything that is driven by instinct or driven by intellect or even emotion is not truly free choice. If I like apples, for example, and I don't like bananas, and you give me an apple and you give me a banana, am I exercising true free choice by choosing the apple? I'm not exercising true free choice, because I don't like bananas, I like apples. But if I have two apples and both of them are exactly the same, there I would say there is free choice. And if I choose it because I'm right-handed, for example, and this one is near to my right hand, then my instinct has dictated that choice. So what is free choice? Where does free choice apply? Where is it manifested? Tonight I didn't really have a free choice to come to the shiur. It was raining, terrible, I had a headache. But what can I do? I'm the rabbi. You, on the other hand, had a free choice. So I didn't have a free choice. So really there are things that compel us to choose or to live our lives in particular ways, and that's not really true free choice. In fact, it is human nature to evaluate something and to come to conclusion what is right and what is wrong and to act in accordance with that. That act is almost compelling. That is almost like we are compelled to behave in a particular way, to such a degree that it is a greater compulsion than forced pain. So where is the free choice? Parental love, for example, that's not free choice, it's an instinct. You behave in a particular way. It's an instinct. You instinctively behave. You instinctively give your children to eat and nourish them and clothe them and house them. That is an instinct. That is not something that you do by free choice. If a person has a plate of food or a plate of hot coals and he's hungry, is it called free choice by choosing the nice, warm, beautiful soup? Is it free choice? I exercised my free choice by choosing the soup, and by denying and rejecting the coals. No, that's not free choice. That is not free choice, because you are to be a fool to choose the coals over the food. So where is free choice? We know that the Talmud says, Hakol bidei shamayim, chutz miyirat shamayim. Everything, absolutely everything is predestined, divinely ordained, except for the fear of heaven. So the only realm that we truly have free choice in is to be able to live a bodily life or a spiritual life. Both are equally powerful. Both are equally compelling. Both are equally attractive. One is more readily available. The other one needs a lot of hitbonenut, a lot of meditation and thought, because we naturally veer towards the body. But God also endowed us not only with a bodily instinct, but also with an intellect that can evaluate things and come to conclusions and say, well, this is not appropriate. This is animalistic behavior. I can do better than that. I can be above that. I can be beyond that. Which means that in all physical aspects, we don't have free choice. We can alter God's decision. We can alter particular set of circumstances through merit, through additional merit, through prayer. Many sages and scholars say that many times a particular situation is brought upon us to squeeze us to a point of sincerity of prayer that we don't ordinarily pray. Very few people pray with a very powerful sense of intention and sincerity. But when difficulties come upon us, it's almost like God forces us into a corner to squeeze some sincerity out of us. Which means that the very difficult situation that we have encountered is all in order to lift us to more greater spiritual heights. Which means that although circumstances are ordained from heaven, but we can change them. We have the ability and the power to change them. So where does free choice lie? Must be that free choice can only lie in the spiritual, not the emotional, not the intellectual, not the instinct, but only in the realm of the spiritual. And even then, there are times where even almost in spiritual realms, it is almost that we don't have choice there either. It is worthwhile to take note of what Maimonides writes in the laws of repentance and the laws of tshuva in chapter 5. I will read through the majority that is relevant to us. And he says, Rishut lechol adam netuna. Permission is granted to every person. If a person wants to direct himself in the good path, in the upright path, veliyot tzaddik, and to be righteous, harishut biyado, it is totally in his hands. And if a person wants to veer and guide his life in accordance with evil and negativity, harishut biyado, it is totally up to his hands. And this is what the verse says, Hen ha'adam haya ke'ahad mimeno ladat tov ve'ra. Which means that man is now, by eating the tree of knowledge, man has become aware of both good and bad. Good and bad became an intrinsic part of his psyche, of his psychology. And it's up to man now to evaluate what path they want to lead. It is interesting to note where it says in the Bible, in Bereshit, Na'aseh Adam betzalmenu kedmutenu, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. In which way can man be like God? So there are many commentaries. Some of the commentators explain it is free choice. Only man has free choice. God and man has free choice. That's the way that we are similar or akin to godliness, is only through free choice. No other entity has free choice, not even celestial, spiritual beings, heavenly bodies don't have free choice. The sun does not have a free choice to rise in the east and set in the west, or to one day say, I'm not in the mood to give off my light. The angels, the spiritual entities, don't have a free choice but to carry out the will of God. Only man has free choice to do good and bad, and soon we will see why. And there is no other kind that is similar to man in this manner, that he has free choice. That man, with his own thoughts and ideas, and with his own knowledge, knows intimately what is good and what is bad, and then chooses to do good or bad. But before we said, but ultimately it is the nature of man to evaluate things and to come to conclusions. So really, is that really truly free choice? Well, when it comes to matters of our lives and what's right and what's wrong for us, it's not really free choice. But when it comes to spiritual things where we do not see the outcome immediately, where it's hidden from us what the spiritual outcome of our actions are, perhaps yes. Maimonides clearly says that yes. And nobody can hold him back to do good or bad. Even God does not hold him back. Can you imagine? A person was created by God, is totally dependent upon God for every breath, and he has the capacity to negate God himself, the one that feeds him, the one that holds him. For example, the nature of this to fall, I've given this example before, the nature of this book is to fall, the weight, the gravity pulls it down or whatever, is to fall. If I want to be able to suspend this book, what must I do? I must continue, the force that holds it up must continually hold it up. Let us imagine for a moment that this book had knowledge and feeling. How foolish would it be for this book, who wants to remain up because it's wet down below, and would want to remain up, and it's its own interest to remain up, one day say, this hand that's holding me up is a bit uncomfortable, I'm getting a bit sweaty there, and try and shake it off. Does it make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. And so too, the Almighty holds us in His hand, so to speak. The Almighty creates us and recreates us every second. Nothing can exist without His existence, as Maimonides says that only God is a true existence. Because everything is dependent upon God for their existence, they exist, but they are not considered an intrinsic and true existence. Because we are totally dependent upon God. If that is the case, how ludicrous it is that we choose, God forbid, to do contrary to the will of God, who holds us and creates us and supports us and gives us life every second. Yet because God hides His presence, that is a possibility. Why God hides His presence? Why does God give us free choice? We will analyze in a minute. But if you deeply think about it, really, it makes no logic, no sense. It is only if we allow ourselves to be fooled by the facade of this world that we have to then ponder and choose. But if there was revealed to us, if all of this was revealed to us, we would not have free choice. So God hides us in order to afford us free choice. We will soon see why. And Maimonides goes on, and I'll be very brief. Don't be a fool to think. Don't follow in the manner of fools to think that God decrees upon us to be good or evil. There is no such thing. Every person has the capacity to be as righteous as Moshe Rabbeinu. As righteous Moshe Rabbeinu does not mean to say on his spiritual lofty level. It means on the realm of his action. Not everybody can be as wise as the greatest King Solomon. Not everybody can be as righteous as Moshe Rabbeinu, but everybody can act in accordance with the righteousness of Moshe Rabbeinu. We can all compel our deeds and our actions to be as righteous as Moshe Rabbeinu, or as the wicked, as Yeravam. And Maimonides takes us even further, and he says we can even follow paths of foolishness or wisdom. And nobody can force him either way. And Maimonides continues, and he says, "Bedavar zeh," and this matter of free choice, ikar gadol hu, it is a main principle in our religion. Hu amud haTorah v'mitzvot, it is a foundation of our Torah and our commandments. As it says in the verse, "Rei natati lefanecha hayom et ha'chaim v'et hatov." See, God speaks and addresses us. See, I place before you, through Moshe Rabbeinu, see, I place before you the life and the good, and the death and the bad. Meaning to say that God says here, it's before you, you choose. Ubaharta b'chaim, and you should choose good. So we see that Maimonides explains that one of the fundamental principles of our faith is the concept of reward and punishment. When it comes to spiritual matters, not reward and punishment, the principle of free choice. When it comes to spiritual matters, how we live our lives, how to choose to live our lives, we have absolute and total free choice, and the reign is totally given to us. If that is the case, then we have a very important question to ask. And that question is, we mentioned before that God's unity is such that nothing exists outside of God's consciousness, which means that God is the only true existence, and we exist within His consciousness, within God's existence, so to speak. We are not separate entities from God, even though seemingly we think we are, and it looks like we are, but we're not. There is just the impression, because the source of our life is hidden, we have the impression, we think that we are independent. We're not independent. It doesn't take much to understand that. But between understanding that and living it and feeling it, there's a big bridge between that. Because we know that we can understand sometimes what's right and what's good, and actually doing it or overcoming our own personal nature, big bridge. We understand it's not nice to get angry. It's not good to get angry. It's not good to have a temper. But people are born with tempers. We understand that, but there's a big gap between understanding that and actually translating that in action. So too, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take a genius to understand the principles of God's unity. And tonight's shiur is not about that, but I need to mention a little bit this concept of God's absolute unity. When we say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God," the Lord is one, does not mean that there is only one God. It means the Lord is one. Everything is included with His unity. Everything is absolutely a part of God's unity. Nothing is divided and distinct and independent from godliness. En od milvado means, like it says in the verse, there is nothing but God. So everything that we look at is simply a physical manifestation of godliness. And it is absolutely and totally dependent upon God, because God created the world ex nihilo, something from nothing. The nature of nothing is to continually be nothing. And if it is brought into existence, then it is totally dependent upon that entity that continually brings it into existence, because it doesn't exist. It didn't have an existence on itself prior to that being that brought it into existence. And therefore it doesn't truly exist outside of godliness. So this is the unity of God. If that is the case, how can that be possible that we can choose? Because if we can choose, the mere fact that we have free choice almost, God forbid, indicates that there is something independent of God. How can that be? There is nothing independent of God. So the concept of free choice is a difficult one when it comes to understanding it or consolidating that with the concept of the unity of God. But that is the will of God. Like Maimonides explains later on. That is what God willed. Maimonides asks a powerful question later on, but it's not the scope, but I'll just mention to you. How is it possible God knows everything, that knowledge doesn't automatically bring about the end result, so to speak? Maimonides says it's something beyond the human understanding to understand that. And of course, God, being God, can do even beyond the normal realms or the normal laws that he himself implemented, because he's unlimited. So too over here. Why did God give us free choice in the first place? It's because we have an ability to bring or reveal the unity of God in every dimension of existence, even in the lowest realms and the lowest levels. Which means to say that where could you truly appreciate the unity of God? Only where there is division. If there is division, and then you reveal the unity of God, then you appreciate the unity of God even greater. If you live in a realm where there is no division, for example, let's say we exist on higher spiritual planes that do exist. What's called, for example, the world of Atzilut, the world of emanation. In the world of emanation, the unity of God is so revealed that any existence that exists in that realm is so included in the unity of God that doesn't feel itself. For example, the light of the sun in the sun. We know that the sun emits rays and light and heat. Now, when the rays of the sun come over here, it seems like it's an independent entity, right? When it's daytime and you've got light here, well, where does that light come from? So you got to think it comes from the sun, but the rays of the sun seem independent, but they're not separated from the sun. If you were to build a wall or a barrier between the sun and the rays in this world, then the rays would not penetrate, would not come here. They're absolutely, totally included and dependent upon the sun. But we don't appreciate that in this world. In fact, even deeper, look at the power of the sun. The power of the sun is so great that it even creates its very opposite. What is that? Clouds. The sun is responsible for clouds. The sun is responsible for water, for its exact opposite. Think about it. You look at the rain, do you see the sun? You don't look at the rain and see the sun. You don't look at the clouds and see the sun and understand that that's the sun. But the rays of the sun in the sun itself, totally nullified before the sun. It has no existence. You don't see and appreciate the rays of the sun in the sun. So too, godliness in higher realms, in the world of emanations, don't feel their existence at all because they are like the rays of the sun in the sun. They have no independent existence. They know that. We also don't, but we don't feel and understand that because God hides it from us. Just like if you look at a drop of rain, you wouldn't appreciate ordinarily if you would not meditate and understand that the sun is responsible for that. So we can only come to that conclusion through meditation, through understanding, through pondering. Therefore, it is no novelty of the unity of God in higher realms. Where is there a novelty, so to speak? Not that God needs any novelties, but where can you really appreciate the unity of God? In a realm where there is seeming division or seeming independence from God, like our world, where we are truly, if we had to meditate and think, dependent upon God, but seemingly we're independent because we have free choice. And when you exercise that free choice to act upon the unity in the presence and the knowledge of the presence of God, that is the true unity of God. And that is the greatest gift that God has given us. The ability to unify God in this world is a wondrous thing. And free choice plays a major part in that. And when we choose to do the right thing in the eyes of God, or choose to be aware of the presence of God and our dependence upon God, and act upon it, that is a wondrous thing. Furthermore, God is the essence of good. The Talmud says that a person prefers one measure earned by his own sweat and toil than 9 measures given to him as a gift. That's what the Talmud says. Would a person prefer to be in a wheelchair without having hands and feet and being fed all of the great delicacies of the world and being clothed and bathed and all of their needs and pleasures taken care of? Or would a person prefer to have his own independence and eat dry bread? What would a person prefer? Of course you prefer dry bread, because you have your own dignity, you have your own independence. God is the essence and the essence of goodness. And therefore, when God reflects His goodness to us, the greatest good that He can do to us is to give us a sense of feeling of independence, or a feeling that we are contributing to God's world or earning our keep, so to speak, as opposed to what's called nahama dichisufa, bread of shame. Nobody wants bread of shame. People would rather work hard to earn their keep, because you have your dignity. Since God is the essence of good, when He gives us good, He gives us to the greatest of degree. And that greatest degree is to be able to feel that we are partners with God creation, A. And the second is to be allow ourselves to reveal the greatest unity of unity of godliness, even greater, that can be appreciated in higher realms. I know it's a little bit deep, but this is the gift and that God has given us. And we'll develop this a little bit in a minute. So since we have within our nature to evaluate things, to feel towards things, and when, for example, we have, since we have a heart, we have mercy towards something that is touches our hearts. We see an animal in pain, we arouse mercy, we go out and do something about it. Or when we come to the conclusion that this is right or this is wrong, and are compelled by our emotions or our intellect or our instincts to act in a particular way, then that is touches no deeper than that, the emotion or the intellect or the instinct. But what happens if there is no intellectual or emotional or instinctive motivation to do something? For example, to put on tefillin. You don't necessarily understand the mitzvah. You definitely don't see the holiness that you inject in the world and surrounds you when you put it on. But you know God commanded you. And you're not in the mood. You have a headache, you're not in the mood to put on tefillin. Yet you get up and you put on tefillin. Or you get up and you do an act that you know that this is what God desires, and you don't understand why, and you don't even want to do it. Where does that come from? If you don't understand, it doesn't come from the intellect. If you're not in the mood, it doesn't come from your emotion. Definitely not instinct, because our instinct drives us to do physical things. Where does it come from? It comes from that which actually defines us. It comes from our very core, from our very essence. And truth be told, if we were to think about that, if we were to reveal our essence and our core, which we ordinarily don't, then really on that level, there is no free choice, which we will speak about in a minute. Because our core and our essence is not revealed, that's where you have free choice. If your core is revealed, then you don't have free choice. Because that is really who you are. Because you are a part of God, you're an inseparable part of God. When you understand that, then you don't have any longer free choice. And I'll develop that a little bit more to understand this. Let us go and ask another question. It says that God chose the Jewish people. You chose us from all nations. What does that mean? Does that mean that Abraham Avinu worked so hard and he proved himself to be a forefather after 10 tests? And Yitzhak proved himself to be a forefather. And Yaakov proved himself to be a forefather. And they decided to separate themselves from all the shenanigans of the rest of the society and the rest of the world. And they lived spiritual lives and they pursued purpose. And God promised them this land, and God promised them a nation that will come to this land and inherit this land, etc., etc. Now, what does that then mean? The Jewish people came to Mount Sinai, and God said, hang on a minute. Now let me think. Should I? Shouldn't I? Should I choose them? Should I choose another nation? What do you mean? The choice was made, so to speak. God could do everything. God could do whatever He wants, but was not that choice already made? Did not God made that choice already? God made that choice. So what does it mean that God chose us? Did He really choose us? Was not that choice already made when Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov proved themselves? Then there was a choice. What about creation of the world? God desires there to be righteous people in the world. So the choice was already made then that God desired a world that there will be righteous people and souls in the world. Then people chose to be either a part of that mission or to reject that mission. And then there are those that stayed with the program and those that left with the program. Those that left with the program eventually left the program. Those that stayed with the program stayed with the program. Abraham stayed with the program. Yitzhak stayed with the program. Yaakov stayed with the program. Even Yitzhak had a son, Esav, who didn't stay with the program. He said, what do I need this for? Why should I inherit the land of Israel? I have to go to Egypt and be a stranger in the land of Egypt. Forget it. I don't want my kids to be strangers. Let him be comfortable. He didn't stay with the program. You don't stay with the program, you don't get the benefits of the program. You don't have the sweat of the program, you don't have the benefits of the program. He left the program. But the choice was already made. God made the choice to create a world and that there be righteous people. And then their children will choose to be part of God's plan and purpose or not. So what does it mean? God created the whole world for the Torah, for this moment. It happened later on in time. But as far as God's time is concerned, there is no before, after, and now. It's all one. There's no division in time. God is not limited in time. So in our perception, at a certain point in time, God says, well, now I'm giving the Torah. But you always planned to give the Torah. And who did you plan to give the Torah to? You always planned that there will be a nation that will receive the Torah. So where's the choice here? So what does it mean? The truth is, the choice was, is God going to reveal His essence or not going to reveal His essence? That's the choice where God chose. Is God going to reveal His essence or relate to the nation of Israel or the nation that will receive the Torah, whatever that nation called? And it was a possibility that all mankind would have received the Torah if they would stuck with the program. They didn't stick with the program, so the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob stuck with the program. So they were the ones that, those that chose not to were seeded out. So you stayed with the program. That was your intention all along. So what does it mean that you chose us from all other nations of the world? That's what you wanted in the first place. It simply means when you choose because of emotional reasons, in other words, if God says, look, I'm giving you the Torah because of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, so that's almost like an intellectual reason. An intellectual reason that compels you to give us the Torah because of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Or an emotional reason. You love Abraham, you love Isaac, and you love Jacob. You're giving me the Torah. That means that the choice to give the Torah is only as deep as that. But God didn't want the giving us the Torah just skin deep. He wanted it way deeper than that. He wanted that to express His very core. And that's what free choice means. When it comes from your very core, your very essence. Because if it's a choice dependent upon intellect, emotion, or instinct, it's only as deep as that. But if it comes from your core, that's your very essence. That is the revelation of your core, of the greatest thing, who you are, what makes you who you are. That is where the choice is. To reveal the core or not to reveal the core? And God chose to reveal the core. Let us analyze another thing that the Gemara says. It says that God suspended the mountain upon the Jewish people and said, will you receive the Torah or will you not receive the Torah? If you receive the Torah, good. If not, here will be your burial place. Here will be your burial. Did not the Jewish people already beforehand say, Na'aseh v'nishma, they made a declaration that we accept everything, even we don't know what it is, and even we don't understand what it is, we accept it all, and we will then learn and study and understand it. But we understand that it's not a relationship that could be dependent upon our intellect and our emotion, because that is very limiting. Of course we will pursue understanding it. But if our relationship with God is only based upon our intellect, it's very limiting. It's got to come from our very core. That's why they said what they said. That's why it wasn't really a choice. It was a revelation of their core. They chose. Are we going to reveal our core connection with God or not? Or will we then receive the Torah based upon intellect? Intellect says, what do you mean? God is giving you a gift. You're going to reject it? So in other words, they didn't receive the Torah because of intellect. They didn't receive the Torah because of history or emotion or any sort of cultural attachment. They received the Torah because of their core. They chose to reveal their core or not to reveal their core. To relate to God from their core or not to relate to God from their core. God, when it says chose the Jewish people, He chose to reveal their core or not to reveal their core. You know, people have relationships, they don't always reveal their essence, their core. Sometimes people put layers of protection for whatever reason. So they can have relationships with people and even intimate relations with people and marry people, but their core has not been revealed to that person. And they lived their whole life, they've chosen to live their whole lives without an intrinsic or essential connection one to the other. They're not truly one. You may have a wonderful marriage, you may have a wonderful relationship, but you're not one. And that's a big difference. When you choose God because of intellect or emotion, you're not one with God. But when you choose to reveal your core, go beyond your intellect, go beyond your emotions or your instinct or whatever, then you're one with God. Then you reveal the true divinity and oneness of God in the world. So then, after the Jewish people made this declaration, we accept the Torah wholeheartedly without even knowing what it is. And so the Gemara says that God, so to speak, uprooted the mountain and placed it upon them and said, you accept the Torah, fine. If not, I'll bury you here. Is that free choice? No. Absolutely not. It's forcing us. What does that mean? Does that mean that God literally turned over the mountain? Maybe yes, maybe no. That's what the sages say. Many times things are to be understood not only just in the literal, but something beyond. What's going on here? What God had to suspend. God couldn't have said, listen, accept the Torah, or I will turn the world back into nothingness. Because the whole reason why I created the world, something from nothing, was for the Torah. You don't want to accept the Torah, then the whole world has no meaning, no purpose, back to zero, back to nothing. What does it mean? What did He reveal? What was He telling them? He was telling them that, and He's telling us that really the Jewish people had no choice. Do you think the Jewish people had a choice? When they saw the revelation of God on Mount Sinai, was there a choice? Did they make a choice? Oh, hang on a minute, no, it doesn't suit me. How can you, what do you mean? When godliness is revealed to you, is there a choice? There's no longer a choice. Choice was taken away from the Jewish people. What does that mean? Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? On the one hand, what it reveals is that the connection between us and God is beyond the normal, the rational, the emotional. It is so intrinsic, it is so to the core that it is even beyond choice, so to speak. There is no choice here. Why? Because the core of God was revealed to the core of us. Our core was revealed to be connected to God. When that happens, really, there is no free choice. The only free choice is Do we lead a life of external, focus on the facade of the world? Or do we choose to get to the very core and essence of our existence and work hard to reveal it? That is the choice. But when you get to the core, you understand that there is no free choice. It's not a matter anymore of choice because you are one with God. And when you understand that there is no, you've revealed the true unity of God between you and everything. And that is why there's no dichotomy. That's why there's no contradiction to the concept of having free choice and the unity of God, because its purpose is to give you a greater understanding, an opportunity for the unity of God. So therefore, what is the choice? The choice is, do we follow a world of emotions, of intellect, dominated by external forces, our passions? Or do we realize that there's something deeper and beyond that? Put all of that aside and reveal our core. That is the choice. And if you think about it, you see many verses that hint to this. I mean, there's a verse in Shmuel the prophet. In Shmuel 2, chapter 14, verse 14, it says, "Lebilti yidah mimeno nidah." Be not, it says that he that is banished, be not an outcast from him. Which means to say that there are those on the level currently that they're on the level what's called banished. In other words, that they are seemingly lost. Yet the prophet says nobody can be lost. Even those that are seemingly lost cannot be lost by God. Why? Because we have a core. Our external may seemingly be lost. We may attach ourselves to passions, to sin, to negativity, but our core is never lost. And our core is always pure. And our core is always one with God. That can never be lost. And therefore reveal that, because that is your core, that is your essence. Never be lost. Why can it never be lost? Because on that level there is no choice. There is no free choice on that level. It's like saying, you want to live or you want to die? It goes to the core. That's why you don't even think about breathing. You don't consciously think. You think about eating. I'll eat later, I'll eat now. No, I want to fast because of this, because of health reasons, because of a diet. I want to go on a hunger strike because of a moral idea or whatever the case may be. Breathing, no, because it's so intrinsic to the core. And don't forget, we go to sleep at night, and if we have to think about breathing, we'll die. The deeper something is to your core, there is no free choice. When the light is turned on, everything is understood. When godliness is revealed, everything is understood. No free choice. The choice is, are we going to lead such a life or not? Are we going to pursue revealing our core or not revealing our core? But on the deepest level, there is no choice. Just like on the deepest level, the concept of God choosing us is not an idea of, I'll choose him or I won't choose him. I'll choose the Jewish people or I'll choose the Iranians. That wasn't the choice. The choice was, will I reveal my core or will I not reveal my core? There is an interesting saying that goes that neither a Jew can or want to be separated from godliness. What does that mean? Do we not choose to do things that seemingly separate from God? Does not the prophet say, Ki avonotechem avdilim benechem leven avichem shebashamayim, there your sins separate you from God? Does it not say that? But that's only in the external. On the core and the essence, there can never be any division between our core, because we are part of God. We are one with God. The choice is, do we want to pursue that? Do we want to investigate that? Do we want to reveal the core or not? That is where the choice is. Because eventually, Every Jew at the culmination of his reincarnation cycle will choose godliness because his essence is one with God. Because we have a soul that is a part of God, it's inseparable. So on the core level, as we mentioned before, there is no free choice. But how do you reveal that? So many times history reveals it for us. Circumstances reveals it for us. Sometimes sin itself reveals it for us because we feel so separate from God that we are forced to repent. We are forced to search within ourselves and to repent and to come close to God. And then our core is revealed. Now that inner awakening that comes after a sin is called tshuva. Therefore, the sages tell us that we must never ever give up on ourselves. No matter how low level a person may have reached, never give up on yourself. Why? Because, as the Prophet says, that he who is banished be not an outcast from him. Can never be banished. You can never be banished from God. So in a way, on that level, there is no free choice, which means that despite the fact that we've made wrong choices, despite the fact that we've done wrongful things and wrongful deeds and wrongful sins, at the end of the day, we will be redeemed. Why? Because we have a part of us that is always redeemable. That core of us that is always united with God, that can never be separated with God. And that is deep. And that is what the true meaning of free choice is. Remember, we said before, if you choose because of intellect, you're compelled to, or emotion or instinct, you're compelled to. But it's only as deep as what that is. When we say free choice, when you have an apple and they both look the same and you choose one over the other, what made you choose that over the other is something intrinsic within you. In other words, it's beyond intellect. It's beyond emotion. It's beyond any consideration. It's not I'm choosing the apple because I like the apple more than the banana. It's beyond all of that. It's something much deeper than that. That is the true intention of what free choice is. It means it's something that comes from your core, your essence. You're now chosen to reveal your core, your essence, and your intrinsic bond with God. You may not even understand what this mitzvah is all about. You may not even understand why you're doing this. But you don't need to. Because again, if your relationship with God is dependent upon only understanding, then it is only understanding deep. And that is a very limiting way of serving God. When we say you have free choice, you're serving God because of your free choice, it means serving God from your very essence, your very core. Something that is high, free. Free means bihira hofshit. Hofshit means something that is totally free from all considerations. Where does it come from? If there is no consideration, no intellect, no emotion, no instinct, where does it come from? It comes from your deeper core. That's what it means, free choice. So when you have free choice to do something, and you do it, something good, something spiritual, something positive, and you do it, it's because you have an intrinsic relationship with God. And you have chosen then to overlook the passion of the world. You have chosen to overlook the facade of the world, the materialism of the world, all of these different types of things. And you have gone beyond, you've matured from serving God just from your intellect, just from your emotions, or just from because of your personal considerations. That's free choice. Similarly, it goes when it says that God chose us. He chose us free choice. What does that mean? Was that mean that there's a possibility that He didn't choose us? That can't make sense. Because if there was, then what was the whole lead up to giving of the Torah? What was the whole lead up of creation and the nation of Israel? The whole going into Egypt was a preparation for the giving of the Torah. So what was it all about? All to come to a point, say, hang on a minute. All right, I'll choose you. Phew. Could have gone the other way. It means that God chose to reveal a different dimension, of relationship. A relationship is not just dependent upon the relationship and any reasoning because of Abraham or Yitzhak or Yaakov, or that they suffered in Egypt, that they called out to God, or that they were deserving of redemption. God chose to go beyond that, free. It was free from the intellectual compelling reasons, emotional compelling reasons, historical compelling reasons. It was free from anything of this, and it was way beyond that. That is what free choice means. We'll stop. Any questions? Yeah. Go ahead.